Hello there, Clayton Stufflebeam here, PFR agronomist with Beck's Hybrids. Today I want to take a little bit of time talking about bulk fill systems on planters, and if you have issues, how to diagnose those issues. So the first thing I really want to do if I've got issues with my bulk fill system is to diagnose whether my problem is at the tank itself or at the meter or mini hopper. So here's kind of how I'm going to start my diagnosing process. So one of the first things I like to do, if I'm having problems, let's say this meter runs out of seed, and I'm not getting seed from the bulk fill tank to the meter itself. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this coupler that feeds seed into my mini hopper. If I get seed flowing out of that, that means my problem is within that mini hopper. If I've got a problem within the mini hopper, the first thing I'm going to check is the baffle height within that meter to make sure it is set for the seed size and or the crop that I am using. Now, if I do not have any air or any seed coming out of this delivery hose, we've got to go inspect the hopper itself. Unfortunately, on a deer planter, I can't easily get to the bottom of my hopper. Whereas a Kinsey, I can pull the seed delivery hose off of the manifold and open it up and determine, hey, maybe I've got foreign debris in there, or I'm creating a bridge. If I'm creating a bridge, why am I creating a bridge? And that goes with both the deer and the Kinsey planter. I want you to think about this. If I keep adding pressure to the system, it keeps air here, and it's kind of holding seed from entering the nozzle right there and then traveling the nozzle to the meter. So not always is it a good idea to increase your bulk fill pressure. For a deer planter, we're looking at pressures, starting bulk fill pressures from 10 to 16 pounds. Whereas a Kinsey, I'm going to start about at 12 pounds. Now, if I do have an issue, let's say I'm running too high of a pressure, we're going to lower that pressure substantially until maybe my rows are not getting the seed they are needed to plant at my target population. And from there, I'm going to increase that bulk fill pressure 1 pound at a time until the planter starts planting as it's supposed to. Also, another thing that can cause problems on a deer planter is in the bottom of your bulk fill tank, you've got an agitator. You see the roll pins right there off that shaft. That's your agitator. The agitator turns on with the key with the planter down. That's how the agitator runs. You need to periodically check and make sure your agitator is working, because if it's not working, can cause seed flow issues. We want to make sure these are lined up with the gaps in between the nozzles, so we kind of agitate that seed so it doesn't get bridged up at the entry point to those nozzles. One more thing to check out on a deer planter. The other brands, Kinsey and Case IH, do not have agitators. The next thing I want to look at, if the problem is still persisting and I've got the right air pressure at my bulk fill tanks and I'm not having a problem with my meter itself, then we're going to walk up the catwalk and make sure I'm not leaking air around my lid seals. If I'm leaking air around the lid seals, we need to address that, because that could be causing a potential problem. The next thing I want to make sure I'm doing properly is my lubricant. So for a deer planter, specifically an exact emerge like you see here, the manual will tell you to run talc, whereas a dealership is going to tell you to run 80/20. I've successfully ran both in this machine. However, I'm going to go off of what the dealership's going to tell me, because they've got more experience in the field than I do. I'm going to run 80/20. For a Kinsey planter, it's going to be graphite or 80/20. I specifically in this planter run 80/20 because I've got a graphite talc inductor on my tender, which allows me to mix the lubricant with the seed. We'll talk more about that here in a second. We want to make sure we're getting those lubricants right and we're applying those at the right rate. When it comes to talc additives or talc replacements, I want you to start slow. Maybe try a couple bags per hopper and make sure you're not going to have any issues with that additive or replacement product. A lot of those are PFR proven, and therefore we do recommend a lot of those, but they were not tested in a bulk fill planter. The next thing is mixing your lubricant. What I like to do is dump a little bit of lubricant in the bottom of my tank, and I try to get it on the lower part of the walls, the incline. As I dump my seed in, whether it's from a tender or bags, it grabs some of that lubricant and carries it down to the bulk fill manifold. Every 2 bags, I dump in the recommended amount of lubricant. That way it's as mixed as I can get it without actually mixing that manually as I load that planter. So having mixed and not stacked on top lubricant is really important to your success. Remember this, talc removes moisture, and then graphite is for lubricity. Graphite's really good for meters and is going to help prolong your meter life. Now let's say we park the planter for a couple of days and maybe it's cold out and it warms up and we get condensation in our tanks. What are we going to do? First thing you do is you try to add and mix some talc in. That'll help. The other thing you might try is taking your lids off the top and running your bulk fill fans to see if you can drive some of that moisture out of that seed pool within the tank. Lastly, if you're having some consistent problems with your planter and you can't quite get it figured out, maybe it's due to seed size or something else, lubricant mixing, there's 2 planters out there that have bulk fill updates. A early Kinsey 3000 series and early 4000 series. You can update your bulk fill tanks to the end trainers that are on the late 4000s or the current 5000 series planter, like the end trainer you see here. Kinsey tells me they flow seed a lot better. That's going to come a little bit of a price, but if you're constantly having problems, that may be a good benefit to you. For a Case IH 1200 series planter, they have a row unit update for the meter as far as the mini hopper goes, so the seed enters a lot easier from the bulk fill hose into the meter without restrictions. Lastly, my last tips for success here is patience, number 1. Making sure you're getting your bulk fill pressures correct with your planter, regardless of the brand you're going to be running. I'm going to follow the manual for a starting point. 10 to 12 pounds, 10 to 16 pounds is kind of where I'm going to start. Too high of a pressure, your brain tells you to increase your pressure if you're having problems, might actually be the root cause of the problem you're having in the field. Mixing your lubricants with your seed is absolutely critical to get that right. And if you're having problems, just take it slow, one little change at a time, so you can kind of diagnose what the single problem is you're having. If you need to update your planter, go ahead and do so. I wish you the best for this year's growing season.